Welcome back to On the Light. In today's episode, I asked Prashantji about the history of Iyengar Yoga. As always, he is able to take a mundane question and offer a response filled with depth and insight. In this conversation, he reflects on his father's teaching and practice, offering a unique perspective that only he can provide. I've listened to this recording multiple times now, and each time I discover something new. I encourage you to listen closely. There's a wealth of wisdom here. Please enjoy this episode of On the Light. Thank you for meeting with me. I wanted to talk about this past January, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Rimi, and there were celebrations there, and when we were in Belur, you talked a bit about the history of Iyengar Yoga, or Iyengar Yoga through the ages, I believe is what the title was of the event. I'm wondering if you could talk about that for the listeners of the podcast.
You see, who are the spokesperson of Iyengar Yoga today? Those who have learned under him, those who have worked under him, in a sense, attended his classes for 20, 30, 40 years. Whatever they learned from him in the classes, they have characterized Iyengar Yoga from that. Now, this is not done. This is not proper. Because Guruji was teaching them in classes, maybe workshops, retreats, conventions. So teaching for 3, 4, 5 days, or teaching for a week, teaching for 2, 3 weeks. Now these are the students came and learned under him. While in India, people attended his classes, maybe once in a week class, for years and years and decades, once in a week class. So Guruji was either teaching classes or conducting classes. Now, this cannot be a criteria to characterize Iyengar Yoga. The students are trying to characterize Iyengar Yoga by their participation in his classes. So Guruji either taught the classes or conducted the classes. Basically, one has to understand the difference between the two. What is conducting a class and what is teaching a class? Because these two verbs don't have, they are not synonyms.
Right.
Teaching is teaching, conducting is conducting. So Guruji at times conducted classes, at times taught the classes. And that too, it was low frequency, such as people came to him locally once in a week, twice in a week, maybe 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And the foreigners came to India for intensives, at the most extending for 3 weeks. So that is not the proper basis to characterize Iyengar Yoga. So the students are not the right persons. His students, I'm sorry to say, they are not right the persons to crystallize what Iyengar Yoga is. Guruji often said that he had the three kind of channels to operate. One, he said, when I teach, I'm a scientist. When I practice, I'm an artist. And when I practice, I'm a philosopher. When I perform, I'm an artist. So as an artist, as a scientist, as a philosopher, was his yoga. And those who are trying to characterize Iyengar Yoga, it's all based on what he taught. Even if they are not students of Guruji and they are trying to characterize Iyengar Yoga, they are going to do it by watching him conduct the classes. Maybe they will objectively watch how he is conducting a class, taking a class, teaching a class, and that would be basis to characterize what Iyengar Yoga is. So he had three phases. One as an artist, a performing artist. The other one was a teacher. As a teacher, he had to be scientific. And therefore, he said, he summed up by saying, I'm a scientist while I teach. Because he has to devise, customize, uh, based on the student that he is handling. And even when he conducted the classes, so he was teaching one-to-one, small groups, large groups, mega classes. Now, how are you going to crystallize Iyengar Yoga based on what he taught in the classes? At this juncture, let me tell you, he taught yoga. But the teaching yoga was not only in the classes, not only in the retreats, not only in the intensive courses, not only in whatever way he conducted classes. He taught yoga in so many different ways. By teaching a class, and most of the Westerners are familiar with that, having a convention, leading a convention, or teaching one-to-one remedial classes, handling the patients one-to-one. And but his teachings were far extensive, which usually people don't take into account. He taught something of yoga by his mere presence. People did not think that there is something to learn by his mere presence, could be formal or informal. He was trying to teach yoga by giving talks. He was trying to teach yoga by giving demonstrations. Now, usually, common man would just watch the demonstration. A demonstration is meant to be watched, and a layman, common man, would watch it. I had said sometimes back to the students that you have his videos available of various demonstrations that he has given time to time. And figure out what you can watch, what you can learn, in what way you can get educated by watching your videos of his demonstrations. Something that you have to watch with open eyes, I said. Something, once you know what is the visual object, you need to close your eyes, listen to any commentary that he does, listen to that. And I said, many of them did not do. I said, I want you to really hear his breath and breathing, because the spectators won't watch the breath. And the breath cannot be heard by people at the end of the auditorium or that hall. But in videos, you can hear his breath. So I said, So it requires someone to watch his demonstration, someone to watch his teaching of classes, someone to sit while he's talking, while he's formally, informally talking about yoga. Somebody who is educated in yoga can only grasp. So it should not be just empirical process of uh, participating in the classes or watching his classes or hearing his classes. Then he also taught something by writing down his books. He penned down so many books and he wanted to convey something out of it. But I am afraid, I'm sorry to say that people did not really justify. They might have read his books, but they did not justify his endeavor and effort in penning down the books. I often said in the classes that you have to understand what is between the lines and what is behind the lines. Even if you want, when you want to learn yoga, when you want to get educated in yoga, you just can't listen to the lines which are spoken. You have to try to understand what is between the lines, what is behind the lines, what is suggested, what is said allegorically. Now, for that, you need to be students of yoga. Now, most of the Westerners, they like to spend the time with him in library and try to talk to him, discuss with him something, or uh, induce him to speak something in the library. So many of them were taking advantage of being in the library with him and encounter with him in the library, apart from being in the class, because that was something different. So Guruji wrote down so many books. He often spoke about, although could not elaborate, like the most coveted principle or coveted precept in his teaching was Dharmendriya. But nobody characterizes Iyengar Yoga by the idea and concept of Dharmendriya, idea of concept of the four compartments of the heart and four compartments of the brain. He correlated them, the Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita with the brain, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha with the heart, and the related connectivity between heart and brain. So he wanted to put across so many things. He did that through his books, through his writings, but that somehow took uh, back seat in all those who try to characterize Iyengar Yoga, define Iyengar Yoga, describe Iyengar Yoga, articulate Iyengar Yoga, enumerate Iyengar Yoga. So the vital points were set aside. Secondly, Guruji was teaching, and his teachings were very much related, directly could be correlated to who is in front of him. So his teachings depended upon the students who were around him. So his teachings were customized. So what he taught in his teaching in classes, etc., really doesn't justify, that is not sufficient basis to really characterize Iyengar Yoga. Say, for instance, suppose I am a PhD in English and you put me to teach English in primary school, nowhere you will get a clue that I'm PhD in English, because I teach the primary school students their syllabus. So after all, what is the caliber of the students of primary school and the caliber of the teacher who is a PhD in English, maybe double PhD in English, more PhDs in English. So he cannot be bringing out the PhD kind of matters while he's teaching the primary school students. So question is, whom did he teach? Who were the students? His teachings very much were related to the students in front. Later, therefore, I learned a lesson. There are two things to be done. One is to teach the students where you have to consider the caliber of the students, what they can assimilate, what is right for them, what is proper from them, for them, what is appropriate for them. The second one is to teach subject itself. So Guruji in his time could not really bifurcate his teaching that this is the teaching of subject of yoga, but every time he had to teach with reference to students in front of him as to what is the age, what is the physical uh, caliber, power, flexibility, problems, difficulties, diseases, maladies. So it was all customized. It was all customized and it was quite consumer yoga, because in front of him he had the students who were actually consumers. So he had to cater what they should be getting. Now, his height of yoga could not get any opportunity for him to teach the subject of yoga. And in later part of his teachings, with reference to Westerners, they all primarily became teachers of yoga. They wanted to teach yoga. Now, if they wanted to teach yoga, naturally Guruji had to give them something which they can carry from here, carry from the classes, carry from Pune, and go back and upgrade their teachings. I'm afraid not many foreigners came to him as students of yoga, but they were already teachers of yoga, or they wanted to be becoming teachers of yoga. They wanted to improve as teachers of yoga. So the teaching of yoga was behind their motives. And therefore, Guruji had to teach them so that they carry some material to go back and teach. Learn teaching, improve teaching, get some matter to be taught, get some matter to be transmitted to their students when they go back home. So the teaching material, or rather teachable material was rampant, because that was why they were coming to India. They wanted to become better teachers of yoga, in whatever sense, maybe better in skills. But very few of them came to him as students of yoga. You want to be students of yoga. So that was one thing, because of the preparatory stage of Iyengar Yoga. Iyengar Yoga, if it was born out of Guruji, naturally, it was his child. It was his brainchild. Now, if that is the case, the child will be going through stages such as infanthood. And then you will go to childhood, infanthood, babyhood, childhood. So Iyengar Yoga also had to go through those stages. If it is taken to be brainchild of Guruji, that's why the whole world calls it Iyengar Yoga. That means yoga which came from Iyengar. The yoga that was formulated by Iyengar. That means it was his brainchild. Now, if it is brainchild, it is going to go through those stages. So it had to go through those stages. So as a child, what will you teach to your child? You will teach what is suitable, proper, appropriate for the child to learn. You will teach. You will not teach something to a child which should be taught to an adult. Suppose you have a son or daughter who is adult and son and or daughter who is a teenager. What you teach your teenager is not the same that you teach your adult. So the Guruji's yoga had to go through these stages. So if it is Iyengar Yoga, I want all of you to answer a question. How old is Iyengar Yoga? What is the age of Iyengar Yoga today? Or what was the age of Iyengar Yoga? What was the age of Iyengar Yoga until he taught? Maybe early 2000s. So until he taught before 2010, what is the age? What was the age of Iyengar Yoga? So he would be teaching correspondingly. Now imagine Guruji was still living, then you would have got another 10 years. More than 10 years, 11 years now, 11th year now. So Iyengar Yoga would have grown by another 11 years. So a child when grows by another 11 years, it's almost a different stage in life. And therefore, as parents, what you should teach, what you should communicate, or what you should provide for a child which is now grown by 11 years would be different. So Guruji could handle all his child, which was maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. He had to teach accordingly. When the father himself has become 90, 80, 90 years of age, and if his son or daughter are now 50, 55, 60 years of age, what is the contribution of the father to the children who are now 50 years of age or 60 years of age? It's a different contribution than the contribution which took place when they were 10 years old, less than 10 years old, teenagers, young ones. And therefore, Guruji could not teach, put forward many things because of the age of Iyengar Yoga. So however wise I might be, what will I do with my wisdom if you just give me children who are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age? What can I do for them? I cannot do this. I cannot talk to them about yoga when they are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So similarly, it happened to Guruji that all his students may be of different biological ages in yoga. What was their age? So the teachings would have differed considering their age in yoga. Now, many of them claim today that we are doing Iyengar Yoga for 30 years, 40 years, 45 years, 50 years. I have a question for them. If you claim that you are student of Iyengar Yoga for 40 years, what is 40 years? 40 years means 365 days into 40. Now, if you try to really quantify how many days in a year you spent with Guruji? And in those days, how many hours did you spend with Guruji? Then you will not be, the figure of 30, 40 years will come down radically if you try to uh, calculate them in terms of hours and days.
Mhm.
Now, I was Guruji's son. When he passed away, I was 65, 66, whatever that age, 65. But 65 years means I was with him 24 into 7. Then there's a difference in my self-claiming that I was student of Guruji for 65 years.
Mhm.
Any other student who claims that I am also student of Guruji for 65 years, in terms of days and hours, if you compute that, it will radically come down in terms of years. 65 years might not even become 6 years, I'm afraid. So the point is, how old are you in Iyengar Yoga? It is one thing to claim I'm doing Iyengar Yoga for 30 and 40 and 50 years. But in terms of real time Iyengar Yoga, maybe you are doing 1 hour or 1.5 hours per day, you are Iyengar Yoga. You learned with him. Try to compute how many hours did you learn under him rather than years. It's a very misleading to say computed by years that I studied with Guruji for so many years. Tell me about so many hours.
Yeah.
And let's try to figure out with those hours, it becomes how many days or how many months. I am afraid it won't become even years. So the problem is that those who are talking about trying to authoritatively say about Iyengar Yoga, speak about Iyengar Yoga, define Iyengar Yoga, characterize Iyengar Yoga, enumerate Iyengar Yoga, I am afraid they are not really qualified to do that. Basically, what Guruji practiced, not for visual perception, but suppose with a scan. Suppose you have a scan to understand what he does internally. Nobody could figure it out. So they just watch the physical culture of his practices. Those who came to Pune and stayed, he came to the hall while he was practicing. They want to watch him practice. Seeing is believing, they say. So they want to see what did they see. They saw only that where there was insignificant yoga, and they could not really see where there was substantial yoga. Yoga is something very internal, something that is happening internally. Now, it is not matter for empirical visual perception. Now, that would be misleading to define, characterize Iyengar Yoga by visual perceptions of what he did. Nobody could see because that was invisible. So there is something that you cannot see, but you can understand. And I've spoken about this in our recent sessions when we talked about knowledge process.
Mhm.
So if you are going to infer, extrapolate, figure out, unless you know something of yoga, you can't really figure it out. You can't assess, you can't figure it out unless you are students of yoga. So Guruji did so many things which were invisible aspects. The visible universe is paltry bit compared to invisible universe. Invisible universe cannot be estimated. And visible universe can be quantified. So all his students were keen to see his practice, keen to watch his practice. I am afraid they were really not inquisitive about asking him what he did internally, which I've been explaining. There is a posture, there is a breath gesture, there is a mind gesture. I am trying to put across, because I am giving education in yoga. Nobody came and asked him about what really did he internally. They were fascinated, or they were awe-inspired, awestruck by the visible aspects of his practices. And therefore, the invisible got more and more veiled, concealed. So much so that not even a thought came about it. So the point is to understand Guruji, we must have, if I may say so, Yoga Sutroscope. Yoga Sutroscope. Patanjali Yoga Sutroscope. And unless we have it, we will not be able to imagine, envisage, extrapolate what is really done internally. And we will all go by what is appearancy form, and more often appearancy form is defooling us, misguiding us. So they all went by what is visible, what is perceptible, what is empirically graspable. There are so many things beyond the empirical grasp. And therefore, they all went by the framework of what he taught in the class. I said in one of my talks, maybe it was also a podcast, I said that Guruji combined the Yoga, of which later came to know as Krishnamachar's Yoga, and this through the Desikachar portal. Then Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, which was yoga of Pattabhi Joyce. Guruji is another colleague. So Guruji had Vinyasa Krama, and he went far ahead in sequencing concept in Iyengar Yoga. Then it was customized. Yoga was customized, particularly when he taught celebrities such as J. Krishnamurti, Yaudi Menehem, Queen Elizabeth of Belgium, the Queen Mother of Belgium. He taught the great celebrities in the field of politics, administration, sports, music. So it was all customized. Where is the yoga? So just as if you give all children of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, and you tell me, propose that I should teach yoga, how much yoga will I teach them? So the problem with Guruji, or misfortune that he had in his life, was he got all infants of yoga. I am not referring to biological age of the people. People of different ages came to him. And they commenced learning yoga from him. So they were in their infanthood, childhood, maybe at the most teenage. How much yoga can I teach if they're all teenagers? So there should be young ones, there should be adult ones, there should be senior citizens. Many of the things can be taught. If somebody is a senior citizen, to teach about the life, I cannot teach about the life for a a boy or girl who are just in their 20s. To teach them about the life, they must have experienced the life. So they must have gone through adulthood, and they should be coming close to being senior citizens or even becoming senior citizens. Then the life can be taught. I cannot teach what is life if you put me to children class, where the children are all 9, 10 years old, or a class of teenagers who are between 13 and 19, or youth who might be 22, 35. So there are different matters to teach about yoga depending upon the stage in life. And it is important to understand something about the life to really understand the life. Now, with respect to yoga, nobody had understood yoga to that extent. Because by the time you have to understand the life, you must be adult, basically, and you must be almost on the boundary of adulthood and the next stage of life. By the time you'll have family, you'll have gone through the social interactions, etc., family interactions. You will have seen people, you will have seen you would have understood the life. But the life cannot be understood by a teenager or by even a young person. Leave the child. It's impossible for the child to understand the life. So in yoga, most of them were children, if you calculate on the basis which I just now spoke about, in terms of years. If the year is too much in terms of months, if the month is too much in terms of days, and they should not be trying to characterize Iyengar Yoga because of their lack of qualification. Although Guruji often repeatedly said that he operated in 3 channels, as a philosopher, how will you understand what Guruji was doing unless you understand something of his philosophy or something, the philosophy that he was um, pursuing? Unless you know the philosophy, how will you know what is his philosophy? So unless you know something of Yoga Sutras, it is not possible to really understand what did he practice, why did he practice, what were the salient features of his practice. Those who watched his practice did not watch the salient features of practice, inherent aspects of practice, the chemical aspect, chemical processes, philosophical precepts of his practice. They only watched what is visible through the eyes. So to understand Guruji's yoga, it is not exaggeration to say that a lifetime is not enough. Howsoever you might be dedicated to yoga, lifetime is not enough. Now, with respect to me, these are all my inferences, extrapolation, based on my study of Yoga Sutras, the study of Indian philosophy, the study of the ethos in which he lived, or the ethos which was exercising gravity on his thought process, activity process, approach process. So based on that, I am trying to again try to figure it out. I cannot claim that I am the authority to talk about Iyengar Yoga or Iyengar's Yoga. These are all my extrapolation. I am leaving it for next generation to pursue this. Generation by generation, it should be pursued. And maybe at some stage, some people will be able to understand Iyengar Yoga better than even I have understood. So let's not try to figure it out to the extent that we will be authoritatively declaring that this is Iyengar Yoga. So I am not authoritatively saying anything that this is Iyengar Yoga, that is Iyengar Yoga. Point is, basically, I don't have to look into Iyengar's yoga, his yoga. I have to look into the tradition of yoga. Because Guruji did not do yoga for one lifetime. Many of you will not uh, embark upon such a kind of uh, tenet or precept. Several lives, or more than a couple of lives, were spent by him in yoga. He had more than one teacher in his previous life. So Krishnamacharya was only teacher of this life. The last life that he had, previous life, he learned from somebody else. Otherwise, he would not gone that far in yoga. So these are endeavors of several lives. And we don't have to spend time, energy in characterizing Iyengar Yoga. The best way is that we must try to understand what is classical yoga. The classical yoga is there for us to really see, think, imagine, feel, learn, study. Now, where is the basis to learn Iyengar's yoga when he is no more? Then how do we come to crystallizing Iyengar's yoga? There is nothing like Iyengar's yoga, no Iyengar yoga. It was classical yoga, which is age old. So it is better to become students of yoga, which has traditions. One is textual tradition, and the other one is oral tradition. And we have to understand the ethos. So ethos will slowly reveal what is classical yoga, age-old classical yoga, eternal yoga. So Guruji was not practicing Iyengar yoga. He was practicing classical yoga. Yoga that came to him through Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, various texts, huge body of texts, gave him the idea of classical yoga, and he was practicing classical yoga. It is for conveniency, I say there is Iyengar yoga and there is Iyengar's yoga. Now, when I say Iyengar's yoga, that means yoga that he practiced. Now, what was the yoga that he practiced? He did not devise and customize. It came to him with a legacy. It came with timeless tradition. And that's why it doesn't have any nomenclature as such. Yoga is yoga. Therefore, we have to understand yoga by becoming students of huge body of subject of yoga. So I got to know or got some idea about what he might be doing because of the yogic texts, such as Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, the Pancharatra, the Agamas. Let me tell you at this juncture, when Bhagavad Gita was given by very Lord, Bhagwan Krishna gave Bhagavad Gita, but ultimately he said, what I say is not something for you to consider as valid. Because what I have said is based on huge corpus of traditional texts. Tasmat Shastram Pramanante Karya Karyo Vyavastito. What you should do and what you should not do. The testimony for it is our age-old Shastras, ageless Shastras. He himself says, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam, that huge corpus, the body of Shastras, is something will validate and tell you what should be done and should not be done. So it is a Shastra Adhyanam. We have to study the Shastras. Huge body of Shastras is there. And that is only one aspect. If you recall, I have repeatedly said, Sat Sangha, Sadhana Sangha, Shastra Sangha. Our association with practice, that is Sadhana Sangha. Our association with the body of texts, the body of huge literature, prolific literature, immeasurable literature is Shastra Sangha. So that will tell us something about. Looking into Shastras, we will come to know so many things. By our own sadhana, we will come to know about so many things. And the Sat Sangha, association with the truth, association with the Sattva, the Sat Sangha is opened out factorally as Sat Sangha. Sat is truth. Sattva Sangha, Sattva is pure. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu means a noble, sagacious, sagely person. Santa Sangha, the Santa means saint. So we learn yoga through the literature of our saints, literature of our acharyas, literature of our yogis. And that is the basis of Guruji's yoga. Timeless legacy tradition. Is the basis of his practice. So unless we look into Shastras, go for Satsanga, Satsanga, Sadhu Sangha, Santa Sangha, Satya Sangha, Sattva Sangha, Sadhana Sangha, Shastra Sangha, we won't be in a position to figure out what is that classical yoga, age-old yoga. So there is no way to study, investigate, understand Iyengar's yoga or Iyengar yoga. It is classical yoga. He did not practice his yoga. He practiced yoga that came down to him. So the point is, we should now not pursue after trying to understand Guruji's yoga. The best way to understand Guruji's yoga is a long tradition which is still flourishing, which is going to flow. It is flowing from time without beginning. It will flow eternally. And therefore, you will be able to learn, understand, study what yoga is by use corpus of yoga, the body of the literature available, prolific literature is available. Literature of saints, yogis, jnanis, acharyas, they are all available and they will give us some idea about what this marvelous, ageless yoga is, which is going to be eternal. Earth will not be there. The creation will be gone. This creation is somewhere going to meet an end. But yoga is eternal. Dharma is eternal. Nothing has thwarted it so far from time without beginning. It has been flowing, it will continue to flow. Guruji will be reborn. Now understand what will be the edition of yoga that he is going to give. So all these noble people, they are reborn. If they are liberated people, they will be visitors. Like visiting professors in universities. In our Sanatana Dharma, there is a provision that these immortal beings will just come and visit and go back, like Dhaneshwars, like Vasishtha, like Yagnavalkya, Vyasa. Vyasa has appeared so many times. The Vyasa whom we revere today has appeared several times in all the various yugas. Krishna has manifested several times. Rama has manifested several times. So these immortal beings, they come like, visiting acharyas, visiting man lifters, man makers. They visit, they do their job, they go back. Those are liberated people or eternally liberated people do come and visit the plane of humans and grace the plane of humans. And that is why our religion is Sanatana, our Dharma rather. Our Dharma is Sanatana Dharma. Because they are going to appear, they will appear. Even Krishna says in fourth chapter, I will be appearing eon after eon after eon. That means Rama will appear, Krishna will appear, Dashavataras will appear, they are appearing, they have appeared and will be appearing. And that is why this is Sanatana Dharma. It is endless, it won't end. Planet would end. We won't be ended. We are eternal beings. There will be no planet, there will be no solar system. Sun is also going to die after another 6,500 billion years. 6.5 billion years is remaining life of the sun. Sun will be gone, Earth will be gone, solar system will be gone, we won't be gone. And this tradition will not be gone. That is why this is Sanatana Dharma, Sanatana culture which is flowing from time without beginning. Cycle after cycle, it has flown, it is flowing. Cycles come and go, creations come and go, but eternal wisdom doesn't come. So I will end this with just referring you to a quotation from a Upanishad called Shvetashvatar Upanishad. In the very opening part of it, it says, the creation takes place as it has taken place in all previous cycles. So creation repeats. And therefore, these beings will come in every creation and will be broadcasting that wisdom, eternal wisdom, in each creation. The other day I said the conch, I referred to this in the class. The conch symbolizes noble thoughts. Noble thoughts will never perish. In every creation, noble thoughts will be blown, and that's the uh, symbolic meaning of conch.
May I ask a question about the conch?
Sure.
In the
Yeah.
CDs that Guruji made for the Yoga Sutras for us to learn, there's a talk from Gita Ji about the invocation to Patanjali. And I could be wrong, but I thought she said that in the invocation, the it's used as like a warning to practitioners for the obstacles that will come about in the practice of yoga. It's blown as a warning. Is that correct?
Yeah, the conch, Patanjali is building a conch. The other day I explained in the class when we had the invocation, Shankha Chakrasi Dharanam. Now, what is that Shankha? What does it signify? It doesn't blow. Like in the Bhagavad Gita battlefield, all the conches are blown. If you look into the first chapter, Arjuna, Bhima, and Nakula, everyone was blowing conch. But the symbolic meaning of conch is to broadcast truth, noble thoughts, and eternal thoughts.
I see.
The yoga, he is holding the conch not for him to blow it, but it symbolizes that he is broadcasting noble thoughts for our time. So Patanjali, for our time, gave the yoga. And before Patanjali, yoga was still there. Patanjali came several times, manifested several times, and gave different the versions of same yoga time to time, time to time. So that's the significance of conch. The conch means noble thoughts, truthful thoughts. The truth doesn't have beginning and end. The truth is always eternal. So eternal thoughts are signified by the conch. And therefore, this traditional yoga will be coming. Today we might say we are missing Guruji. The Guruji himself committed himself that he would come back often. He want to come again and again and again. He will come back. And then he will have improved version of Iyengar Yoga. Maybe we are not at that point in time, but the world at large will get. It may not come in the package of Iyengar Yoga. It will come in as yoga because his name won't be Iyengar now. If he comes back, he won't come as Iyengar.
Yeah.
So, well, Iyengar Yoga is an ocean. There is no point in venturing to go for a caricature or a framework to say this is Iyengar Yoga. Let's try to be discovering the classical yoga, timeless yoga, essential, quintessential yoga, and not go for useful yoga. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to On the Light. In Light on Pranayama, Guruji begins with Chapter 1, What is Yoga? And in that chapter, he lists 18 points that progressively illuminate the subject. Like all of his teachings, these points reward repeated reading. To close today's episode, I'd like to share points 17 and 18, which I feel resonate with today's episode. Yoga systematically teaches man to search for the divinity within himself through thoroughness and efficiency. He unravels himself from the external body to the self within. He proceeds from the body to the nerves, and from the nerves to the senses. From the senses, he enters into the mind, which controls the emotions. From the mind, he penetrates into the intellect, which guides reason. From intellect, his path leads to the will, and thence to consciousness, chitta. The last stage, from consciousness to his self, his very being, Atma. Thus, yoga leads the sadhaka from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.